People would rather pay a high tax rate to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry, call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your joke. You're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, we see how this is going to go. Very interesting.
I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks.
I love this clip.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true.
That's
100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, dude. Oh. Okay, interesting. So he's gone with this, like Beef Sleazy kind of gave it away before. But this is this is optically very interesting. So this, in my opinion, this is a pretty good strategy. It can backfire, however. So we'll go through both scenarios here. But Piers Morgan is shocked, clearly, that he's just gone and bit that bullet. Because Piers Morgan is expecting him to sort of So what Piers Morgan essentially wants to do here is he wants to get him to try and backpedal, and then he wants to try and pin him down into various different corners and try and find contradictions. Okay, it's pretty simple. Piers Morgan wants him to try and paint the story. Like if you look at detective movies or detective interviews on YouTube, for example, they'll do this same thing, where they'll try and get people to sort of articulate the details of what they think or what their alibi is or what their story is. And just little details. How fast were you going on the road? What did you eat that day? At what time did you sort of wake up? And then they will put the picture together and then they'll try and pick it apart and try find various different contradictions. But Nick completely sidesteps that if he just bites the bullet and he says, yeah, I'm a total racist. Yeah, whatever it is. Or if he just bites the bullet and says, yep, no, I agree with everything that I said. Because then at least he doesn't have to sort of answer for that and to try and play Piers's game here. So this is very interesting. But optically, let me just quickly tell you the way that it can backfire. So Nick, one of the reasons why he has to be very careful optically is because obviously there are very, very powerful interests that want to see him, let's just say, not in the public discourse. Take that where you will, right? Not a member of the public discourse. And they, like Media Matters and APAC and all of these different organizations, what they do is they watch his show every night. They try and find little clips of him saying these different things so then they can try and mainstream the idea that he's a racist, a misogynist, and anti-Semite so that he gets disavowed. So optically, this is a tricky one for him because he does give his main enemies some sort of red meat here, or he does give his main enemies some sort of ammo or ammunition here, as opposed to when he goes on Dave Smith or Tucker Carlson or these other shows where he's much more cordial. Here, now, by biting this bullet and taking this sort of strategy, those guys could really use it against him. But let's see how this goes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
you just said
problem.
Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
I think, yeah, I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago University.
He's so right about this. I mean, we have a fair few black people who are in our chats and in our communities and who I've interacted with over the years, and they are the most fatigued out of all of them. Like, they're the most fatigued, because imagine for me, right, as an Australian, just say that Australians had a reputation of everywhere that they're extremely violent. Like, we actually kind of do have a little bit of a reputation like this in places like Southeast Asia. If you go to Thailand or Bali, Australians have a really bad reputation for basically just going over and just getting really drunk and starting fights and causing trouble and having sex with prostitutes. And you get the more sort of like bogan Australians, or like what you'd call, say, sort of like white trash Australians, who would go over to these different places and just run amok, just cause havoc. So they have a really bad reputation. And I hate those guys. I hate those Australians who give us all a bad name. And, you know, so we're unwelcome when we go to these places. It's the same for blacks in America. A lot of them are just completely cool and civilized and everything. But then all of the ones who aren't give the rest of them a bad name. And everywhere I tend to walk around in big cities, I see a lot of that going on. So, yeah, I think Nick makes a great point.
For a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west, see what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence.
Does anybody have the stat, or does anybody have a reference for where I can look this stat up? Let me know.
Evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. Mm-hmm. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
what's
shootings.
With the interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's good. Need to have actually more of that, because Piers Morgan's going to just relentlessly interrupt the whole entire time. So Nick needs to definitely put his foot down in that regard. Hopefully he does a lot of that throughout this, because Piers Morgan, if he's ever losing an exchange, that is all he literally does.
You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood, because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, we see how this is going to go. Very interesting. Now, if I moved into a good neighborhood though, and then both of my neighbors next door to me were black, and I go out in the morning and I wave left, and one of them's a doctor, and I go out and wave right, and one of them's a teacher, and they're really friendly people, then fantastic. I have absolutely no problem with that, and I'm sure Nick would feel the same way. But I don't want to go into a black neighborhood because every time I've been around the black neighborhoods in America, they always try and start fights with me. And you can't really walk around without being sort of hassled. And they're always sort of standing around on the corners and looking really dodgy. And the crime rates are just enormously high. If you just have to read the statistics to see this, like, yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. Like, I'm not keen to move into those communities.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You
Piers pushing the button again.
Wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's.
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't.
You literally said his name, dude. You said his name in full. You could have just said your dad, but you said his full name.
I know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all.
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father.
Oh,
you
dude,
put
land
that story
a plane,
about him
man.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy. And he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low. And I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views. And I think that, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
Okay,
listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not.
So
it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. Oh, it's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
And it's been half an hour, Piers Morgan, and you're taking L's so far.
Well,
and I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own words. With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that.
You're a tabloid journalist? Yeah, exactly. That's what they do.
I think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk about racism. Okay, let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled
Nice.
in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're racist will now have heard it from your own lips.
Oh, dude, Piers Morgan is such a boomer slop journalist. It just kills me sometimes. Why does he think that this is an optical W? I saw him post this on Twitter before, and I was roasting him in his comments. And when he was saying, this guy admitted to being a racist on the show. And then I was like, dude, do you think that's like a W for you? Do you think that's a win for you? Optically? It's like, yeah, people are sick and tired of being called racists. People are sick and tired of being told that if you have any sort of nationalistic sentiment, or if you have any sort of care for white people, or if you don't want your country to be replaced, or if you say that you'd rather live near people who share your values and who aren't violent, and generally speaking, when you look at the numbers, those are white people. If you have any of those sentiments, if you go against the liberal globalist order whatsoever, you're a racist. So yeah, come at me. Yeah, we're racists. What next? So Nick is preaching. Nick is cooking here. Yeah, okay. Call me a racist. Whatever, man. I don't give a fuck about your boomer globalist ideology. Call me a racist. And Piers Morgan thinks, I got him to admit to being a racist. No one gives a fuck, dude. No one gives a fuck.
That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. So I want to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
There's a really, really key distinction here, and I know that Piers Morgan is not going to bring this up, because here's the debate, right? You call us racist, sure, okay? What is racist? Well, racism generally, the traditional meaning of it would be that you hate people because of the color of their skin, or do you have some sort of malice towards people for the color of their skin? Now, obviously, that's not how I feel. It wouldn't be how Nick feels either. But the pejorative that's tossed around today is that anybody who has any sort of a positive feeling about white people, or anybody who would like white countries to be preserved, for example, anybody who would like to live around white people, anybody who would like to have their kids look like them, is a racist. So if that is the meaning of it, then sure. And you can see that Nick has just made this distinction here. You guys will pick it up. Let's watch it again.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Exactly. Yep. Look at the crime rates, man. They're every bit justified of being racist. If it means that I'm a racist because I'm going to cross the road, which I literally did today, because I saw two black people ahead of me doing a drug deal on the corner, and I crossed the road. Yeah, okay, call me a racist. I'm not trying to walk past a drug deal going on. And they're gonna be like, this guy's just seen what we're doing. I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. They're volatile. Okay, so I cross the road. If I'm a racist, I'm a racist. So white people have every single right to be racist if that's what being a racist means. But here, Fuentes would probably do well to actually get a definition of racism from Piers Morgan. And then maybe go into, because Piers Morgan would have to say that you hate people because of the color of their skin. And then you could go into it, based on crime statistics, does this mean that I hate people because of the color of their skin? Or does this just mean that I'm a sensible human being who can observe the world around them and act in a sensible way?
You stand by that?
Absolutely.
So white people
Piers
should go
Morgan's
out of their...
stunned, dude. Stunned again. Let's go watch that again.
Absolutely.
What? Dude, totally stunned. Piers Morgan is currently...
What the magic is.
What the magic is.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition.
Dude, black people go out of their way to avoid black people, right? If you go to and you can tell too, if I'm walking down the street and I see a black guy who's got a suit and a briefcase walking down, I'll walk past. hey man, good morning, how you doing? If I walk around and I see people, you know, well dressed and looking civilized and socialized and everything, fine. But if I walk around seeing them with their pants hanging around their ass and walking around with that sort of like junky limp, or a big group of youths who are all looking suspect, yeah, I'm crossing the street, man. But if I saw a few black guys in turtlenecks and nice haircuts, I'd walk by. Good morning. That's what it is.
If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now, whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person, and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we saw this. Well, you guys remember that story? I think it might have been earlier this year, when there was that guy and his girlfriend standing around, and then that young, angry black guy came and killed the dude. And he looked like such a lib, poor guy. I mean, rest his soul, but he ran away and ran into a post. He was just so unprepared. And then his girlfriend went and defended the killer. His girlfriend went out and defended the killer because she didn't want to be racist. Like, it's a mind virus, and you get yourself into all sorts of situations. So when I'm walking around Los Angeles or parts of Texas or even Nashville and places like this, yeah, like I'm very cautious, and I'm avoiding groups of young black men unless they're wearing turtlenecks or suits.
Put up with the
I don't want to give them any ideas, though, about how to be disarming.